Okay, we are ready when you are, Josh.
Britt, do you want to do it just because it's easier in person, or do you want me to do it via the Zoom in
Yeah, no,
terms of
man,
facilitation?
I can do it. No worries at all, man.
I'll be
Or
right here, but it might just be easier, like in-person dynamics in the room, and then I'll jump in the appropriate discussions.
well, I'll do what I can to make it awkward in person, anyways. So, all right. So it is 4:01. This is the Bluff Town Council regular meeting. First we'll do roll call. Britt Hornsby,
Spencer Wade, Gary Haas.
Jennifer Davila.
Josh.
Josh,
Aaron Nelson serving as town manager.
William Collins.
All right, awesome. We'll move into public comment. There will be a 3-minute time limit for anyone who wishes to make a comment. You can put your name in or raise your hand. We don't have anyone here in the audience today in person. Is anyone indicating they'd like to make a comment?
Got some folks just joining, but they right now are not raising their hands. Just a reminder, if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand.
All right.
I think you're good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so sweet. Next, we'll move to approval of the meeting minutes from March 3rd, 2026 regular meeting and our meeting minutes from March 10th, 2026 work session. Has everybody read them? Are there any comments or changes?
yeah, Britt, there was just one, and maybe y'all can help remember the discussion. It was on the March. Let's see, March 3rd draft minutes. And we were talking about the Copper Cliffs, and the minutes just say this is being handled administratively. I'm not sure if we use that term, like handled administratively, but like my understanding is like we're working through figuring out the details of it, but that doesn't mean like it's fully can be handled administratively. Like I think probably at some point the town council has to agree to formally take action and take those roads. So I just didn't want there to be, unless we actually said this, some misunderstanding that like this was all administrative and the town council wouldn't, like we will be coming back. We're just not ready with the details yet. That was my memory of the discussion.
Yeah,
Would agree, maybe researched.
research.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, handled administratively just kind of sounds like it's done kind of thing.
Yeah, no, we definitely don't want that. So awesome. Good catch, Josh. All right, so I'll motion to approve the minutes with Josh's notes. Can I get a vote?
I'll second it.
All right, awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, all opposed?
Aye.
Awesome. It is unanimous.
Just wait, quick clarification for the reporter. Josh, are you in favor or opposed?
Aye, in favor.
Okay, excellent. It was just a little delay. Thank you.
Like I said, I'll do what I can to make it cumbersome. So unfinished business, number one discussion.
Second set.
Oh, I just did it.
Oh, you did it.
Yeah, I just did it both at the same time.
Yes.
That's okay. Discussion and vote on boundary line, lot line adjustment petition from Jim Sayers.
So it was an interesting afternoon. I was in touch with our legal counsel up until about 15 minutes ago. So the resolution that you all had in your agenda packet, our council just added a couple minor changes to. I'll go ahead and share my screen now. The biggest adjustment would be that he is no longer recommending that we need like an access agreement. So he's just recommending the resolution, understanding that we all know it's a public alley and that's how folks would access this lot. So I dropped an updated, please review Sayers lot line adjustment V3 into your packets. And the notable changes are the addition of the meets and bounds descriptions. Just 1 second. Oh, got too many things open. Let's just share the whole screen, see what happens. All right. So the verbiage looks relatively the same, but there are two additions with meets and bounds descriptions. The first is talking about the conveyance parcel. So the 0.5 acres from Podmore to Sayers. This description came from a survey document that I will bring up in just a second. But this is the original survey that Jim Sayers brought, and it specifically talks about this tract of land. I was able to identify the parcel number as well. So this should make it nice and tidy for the recorder's office to be able to say, this is where, you know, this parcel is coming from. And we are noting this is a portion of the parcel owned by the Podmores. And then it says upon conveyance, the remaining acreage of parcel, you know, will total this amount of acres, 1.65 acres. Then it moves into, with this boundary line adjustment, the resulting meets and bounds for the expanded parcel. And I do want to note that in my research, there is not a parcel number associated with the small triangle that Sayers currently owns. The way that the county described it when we were researching it is it's a gap in the map, where essentially it was such a small piece of land, it really never even got a parcel number. Now we are referring to it as a tract number, but when the 0.5 acres is glommed on to the tiny piece that Jim currently owns, then it results in this legal description. And this legal description was taken from a survey performed by Brad Bunker in July of 2025, which provides the new tract. And so that's where this all came. The rest just talks about, you know, our description, how we went through it, how it's meeting the subdivision ordinance requirements, and then would say, you know, if you guys approve it, upon conveyance of the land as described in the deed, then Jim could go and get this recorded at the county recorder's office. So I am recommending that we include 2 exhibits. And again, I was just getting this, and let me show you the 2 exhibits. So exhibit 1 is going to be the original survey here of what the Podmores hoped to convey. So this is tract X, 0.5 acres. And you'll see in the bottom description, this is tract X. So this should align with the verbiage that you're seeing in, and not should, this aligns to the verbiage you were seeing in the resolution as to what is going to be conveyed. And then exhibit B is the resulting, no, give it 1 second. Exhibit B is the resulting boundary line adjustment. We're seeing this as tract B, but this combined, now the little X marks, that's just a fence. So, but we're seeing this parcel here as one neat, tidy rectangle. And the language that's included in the resolution is this of tract B. So I just would like to include both of those surveys as attachments. The only concern that I have right now is that in getting the legal descriptions put on here, and I apologize to Mr. Sayers and to the Podmores, because, you know, last minute stuff that we're doing in terms of getting the legal descriptions in. I'm concerned about including the warranty deed that Mr. Sayers included in the petition, because I believe that the meets and bounds description in their drafted warranty deed is that of the resulting parcel and not the parcel that actually is to be conveyed. And I will say I am not a surveyor. I don't know all the legalese. But in just reading the containing 0.55 acres more or less as the final description, I believe the meets and bounds that they've provided in their drafted deed should be evaluated by the property owners. I do not believe that you should reference it in the resolution or as an attachment in case they need to make adjustments to their descriptions. However, I do believe that the descriptions, the meets and bounds on these surveys are accurate, and what we're trying to convey, what we're trying to explain would sum up the boundary line adjustment as petitioned.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, the only, as you can see, I just need to your updated one, I just need to do this record. And it's the same name, but it was recorded on July 9th of 2025. So that would be Exhibit B, and then I would attach both of those PDFs that I just shared on my screen. Okay. What questions do you guys have?
Aaron, question. I understand that Chris is recommending, you're saying we don't need an access agreement. And I feel like that's great, that's good advice for him. And I still feel like it's really good for us to have this just be like crystal damn clear. Do I remember correctly when I was in your office for meeting with you, like he came in and gave us like a document that was signed by them saying they acknowledged that the access was the alley?
Yeah, so Mr. Sayers provided a copy of this warranty deed draft agreement between the Podmores and Sayers, which has it says access via Cottonwood Addition peripheral easement slash road fourth south, and it was kind of like written in. This is the same document where I'm finding maybe some conflicts with the meets and bounds. However, I did include in the resolution, or Chris and I included in the resolution, in the now therefore be it resolved, the combined parcel, or I shouldn't say combined, the resulting parcel shall be accessed by the public alley running east-west from West 4th Street south. And we could say, public alley owned by the town of Bluff. Running east-west from Town Street. Bluff Town Street. Because essentially what the whole access concern is. Oops, it is this. Scroll. Is that. Actually, do you mind if I bring up one more? Bring up one more from here. Ooh, so this is where even Chris and I kind of in the county we're all getting into. Okay, so the resulting parcel is going, you can see my cursor here. The resulting parcel sits almost in the middle, just east of the middle line here. And so what Jim is indicating on the drafted deed would be that access would be via 4th west south on this alley. Here's the original triangle that he owns, and here's the new parcel.
I guess and they signed that document.
They have not yet signed, so my understanding of what they're trying to do is that the conveyance would happen upon approval of this lot line adjustment. So essentially, Jim would not want to purchase the property without guarantee that the town has agreed to do the lot line, but also the Podmores won't agree to convey it without knowing that, he'll pay for it. And so these things are kind of taking place concurrently.
And did Chris provide you an explanation for why he feels like it wouldn't be prudent to have a signed agreement?
He indicated that it it just kind of would be overkill, essentially, that in doing this boundary line adjustment, as long as as long as it follows the code, we do see that there is a legal access point. There is an existing alley currently. He doesn't want to convolute it with additional items or set the precedent for future boundary lines to have, all these additional stipulations.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or?
Yeah.
Many.
No, just, I've heard, and I don't know, because I'm still doing the research, that the Cottonwood subdivision laid out with the survey of meets and bounds is off. And so by putting that description in there, are we giving part of the off part to them now, or
So.
what do we need to do to fix that?
Yeah, so Cottonwood subdivision is definitely, I mean, there are a lot of things that are just a little messy. And I would say that in hearing from the county that they consider that triangular parcel that Jim owns to be like a gap in the map. This would actually help correct some of those issues. Now, as to how we figure out exactly how every single meets and bounds all lines up. Josh and I had actually hit on this a little bit, but it is gonna be a little messy. It might be something that like the town council would want to take on to like hire a surveyor to figure out what's going on over there. We do have, I mean, there are plenty of surveys out there, and I think we are finding that, you know, the more recent surveys are much more accurate. But what Gary is describing would be that like there are gonna be these gaps, there are gonna be these overages. In what Brad Bunker conducted in 2024 and 2025. Given the similarities between, you know, I would feel fairly confident that you all wouldn't be creating additional issues with this boundary line adjustment. However, that might not be the case for future items that come to you. So it does seem as though all the ducks are in a row for this one, especially with how recently it's been surveyed. But that does not give you like a blanket pass that anything coming before you from that side of town is gonna be neat and pretty.
So there won't be an additional gap with
No.
trying to close this gap.
What I am seeing is it's not gonna create any additional gaps. You know, it's always unknown, you know, exactly how many little pieces are out there until we like look at everything all together. But as far as you know, in looking at the county's website, I think our only concern from the town's perspective would be that 20-foot alley. We have enough documentation to say, except for the portion that was vacated here, you know, the rest of it is an alley. We have surveys that indicate it is an alley. And so, you know, now the one thing that I will tell you, not a surveyor, I don't read all the legal stuff as clearly as some do, but you know, you know, if someone wanted to go out and make sure, you know, whatever the starting point is 20 feet off of this other parcel, that would be great. It's probably a little overkill again for what we're trying to do here, if we all understand what the resulting parcel is supposed to be. Not perfect by any stretch, but
There's issues like that all over town.
yeah.
So
And I will tell you, like, even just looking at like this, and we're getting in the weeds a little bit, sorry, but like looking at this parcel map, like the whole thing is shifted
Right.
by like 10 to 15 feet. And,
Yep.
you know, so folks even looking at this and the, you know, live stream, like, you know, don't take any of these maps to be, you know, where things exactly are. That's a known issue throughout the county. But in our understanding, there's a 20-foot alley, 20-foot buffer, and this parcel will sit pretty cleanly right here
Gotcha.
and run adjacent to Sayers' current parcel.
So that alley doesn't continue all the way to the Podmore residence?
It does, yes. So this map probably isn't a great one to look at that alley. I don't have that one up right now, I'm sorry. But so there's an alley that goes
Right,
here. And the piece that we're seeing here, this was vacated because this parcel needed access here. And somehow they were able to convince them to vacate for their own personal use. What you wouldn't want to do in the future is say Mr. Sayers or a future landowner came to you and said, oh no, I don't have access to my parcel. You should vacate this alley so I can get to it. You don't want to do that because that's going to block off other people from accessing their parcels. So this one was a little unique. You know, I think that's also maybe why we're seeing this over here, that they were trying to get over here. But in the long and the short of it, as long as you're not intending to vacate any alleys up here, access should be just fine, which is one of the requirements of assessing these lot line adjustments. Okay. Other questions?
Just a brief comment here. To Gary's point, I do think it would be prudent for us, I don't think it's a hair on fire thing, but for us to see what a plan of action might be to address some of the issues in that Cottonwood subdivision. And I don't think we would want to hold up a transaction like this, kind of perfect being the enemy of the good. It seems like it's pretty clear what the intention is here. Everybody's kind of on the record on it. So my thought would be move forward and let's think about, what would be a more global solution to that Cottonwood subdivision issues over there, and how do we approach that?
The only final note that I'll make is that in the petition language submitted, we've been referring to the triangle that Sayers currently owns as approximately 1/10 of an acre, given that we don't have any like true parcel data on it. And if you do the math, it does not, 0.1 plus 0.5 does not equal 0.55. And so therefore I have adjusted the language to say less than or approximately 1/10 of an acre, because the resulting property will be 0.55 of an acre. So just want to make sure that's clear. But that's why they want the meets and bounds, which is why we've got the meets and bounds saying containing 0.55 acres more or less. Okay. This has been an interesting one.
Thanks
I
for,
learned a lot.
yeah, thanks for doing all the background work on it.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you guys. Good questions.
Is there any further discussion on it? Okay, I guess I will, if it's all right, Josh, I will motion that we adopt the Town of Bluff Resolution number 98. And this is a roll call vote, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. So I guess let me just do this one at a time. Roll call vote, Britt Hornsby, yay.
Spencer Wade, yay.
Gary Hodge, yay.
Jennifer Davila, yes.
Josh Ewing, yes.
Awesome.
Two
And
yays, two yeses.
yep. You're right. The motion passes unanimously. Awesome. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, so I'll get Britt's signature if he's the one in person today. And then this document will go to Jim Sayers, who will be able to report. We're asking him to report it at the county recorder's office as he's the one who's conducting all the sales and everything. So purchases.
Good work. Good work with the neighbors, working stuff out and everything. So.
Absolutely.
So excited to bring this stuff back up here. All right, we'll move on to number 2, discuss drafted idling ordinance, including allowed idling duration and enforcement provisions.
I'd be happy to take this real quick and then jump in, Aaron. We're not proposing to vote on this tonight, but bringing this back up, those that we were previously on the council have already discussed this a little bit, but it may be new to a few of us a little bit here. Working to get a couple of ordinances related to like engine brakes and idling cleaned up and finished. We are still needing to work out kind of the enforcement side of this. So we're doing some more research on that front, but we thought that we would have a discussion on kind of 2 points that I think we need to kind of maybe discuss and decide on a direction before this would come back to the council for a vote. And the 2 are kind of highlighted in the document you were provided from Aaron. But one is the period of time after which it would be a violation to idle. And the original draft had suggested 2 minutes. Being kind of the person in town, the mayor being the person in town that is supposed to be enforcing things without an enforcement officer, unless say a sheriff enforced it or something. The 2 minutes seemed to be exceedingly short period of time to me. If, someone pulls over to take a cell phone call or something like that. So my suggestion would be that we change that to something a little more reasonable, maybe 10 minutes. But then if you have a big semi truck that's idling in front of your restaurant longer than 10 minutes, that seems like a more reasonable period of time. But open to discussion on what you guys think about a reasonable period of time would be. But the big point of this is, you have some big old truck that's just, gassing into a restaurant or something that's trying to, serve customers, that seems reasonable. The other piece that seems overly harsh to me is a $500 per offense fee. And again, I'm not sure what's totally reasonable, but something more like $150, $200 seems like a more reasonable, fine than $500. So those were my two suggestions, and just felt like it'd be good for us to have a discussion. And once we kind of figure out the enforcement side of things, we can come back with these two ordinances, the other one being the engine brake, for actual vote from the council.
On an average, how long does it take a big truck to unload its? Cause that'd be the only time they'd be running at a restaurant, I would think.
No, we have a pretty good track record of trucks pulling up and pulling over and staying on all night
Oh.
and
Okay.
things like that.
Okay, well,
So,
okay, that'd be the difference.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
unloading
Yeah, exactly.
versus the side of the road or finding a parking lot.
Yeah, there's a nice big parking lot in the center of town that is much better than it used to be, but yeah, it's.
Okay,
Get off my lawn. Sorry.
yeah, I'm not for that. I was just thinking, 2 minutes or 5 minutes for unloading a truck. Whatever it took, if on average, for unloading a truck. These ones that are parked in the,
I think that's kind of, I mean, in my opinion, that's kind of what we're trying to stop is kind of like the long-term just parking and sitting there idling all the time.
Yeah, not necessarily like the guy, leaving his stuff running while he's, I'm dropping off a few things or whatever, like that's, but it's these long-term
okay.
guys.
So maybe we even adjust it up to 15 minutes. I don't know. I mean, but at the same time, if we're trying to look at it from a pollution standpoint, which I think is where the 2 minute came into, I think a lot of cities have the no more than 2 minute idle time before you turn off your engine, but that's with every vehicle, right? I mean,
It's funny, I can't remember, I have no memory of where this 2 minute thing came.
I don't
from.
remember doing 2 minutes either.
I remember us talking about it, not driving it 2 minutes.
Yeah, maybe we didn't look at it that closely at that point. I don't know. I know we were just trying, when we were looking at it before, our main objective was to get the Jake breaks passed, so.
I mean, two seems ridiculous. I mean, well, two seems so little that that could just be a misunderstanding problem where like 10 minutes is like, okay, you're cruising towards hanging out. Like, well, so town boundary wise, is there anywhere else like outside like of town proper where they would park and do this?
Outside of town?
Or
proper?
outside of like, around people?
Yeah,
Like,
the
it's
intersection.
The intersection.
times
Sorry,
and-
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And that doesn't bother anybody, like, right?
Well,
It's a safe spot, right?
That's
for them
kind of
to-
what I think, but
So
short of creating a rest area or something like that,
Mhm.
I don't know how we get around.
I'm just, you see what I'm saying here? Like, that'll be a spot where I don't think we'll ever get complaints about people. Idling, camping over there, but
Just driving out of town and pulling over.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I would see that this would, not necessarily be an issue of towns of a smaller incorporated size. Like it's very easy to define within town limits for, a nice little suburb kind of town. So I think Britt brings up a really good point. I would be very cognizant of like what you choose to designate or not designate and the reason why you would want to do so. So if you're saying this is not within town, that does set a precedent for folks to come in the future and say, I'm not part of it. So just be careful in how you're going to describe it, or within town limits is a very nice clean way to do it.
Yeah,
That would be my only.
No, totally. No. I was just asking for like practicals here, like on,
No, it's a,
I mean, because the only ones that are gonna get complaints are the ones parked next to people anyways, like, so.
Could we state it within like a specific zone of town between the zone of,
you could do an overlay,
Yeah.
which we would probably want to have a little oversight from planning and zoning. You could do an overlay, or you could default to your, commercial residential zones and maybe disregard the agricultural zones.
Just we can do it residential loans and then.
well, we could do commercial,
Commercial.
no idling in commercial or residential for longer than 10 minutes, and then that. I mean, that leaves out that we're gonna irritate anybody who buys property to move into out by the Mission, but that leaves out most of the stuff that's to the west of us.
Yeah.
That seems like a good solution, a fairly clean solution that doesn't require us to do a new overlay or something to that effect. But you're right, like we're not going to be like going out there to the intersection with 191 and being like, hey, you've been here, you need to.
Wake up.
And I know we might be fighting phantoms here, but that might not never be, an issue. I'm just trying to think, because we do want to encourage people to sleep when they need to sleep nearby. And there's not a lot of great places around to do it. So not encourage, but allow. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, they've got a pull over.
They've got a pull over.
Yeah.
You want an ordinance that can be fairly enforced. And there is some obviously leeway for enforcement where it's not like the mayor is forced to go out there and give you a ticket when you've been there for 10 minutes and 1 second if you're unloading at a business and the business knows you're there. But if the business has been like, hey, my customers are choking on these fumes and this guy's been here for a long time, then you have the, ability to go knock on the door and be like, hey, it's time to move on.
So are we comfortable with like something like residential commercial in 10 minutes?
Yes, 10 to 15, yeah.
And a smaller fine.
Yeah, and the fine, I'm indifferent to you as long, because it seems like most is the 10-minute thing and having the conversation is gonna do most of your work, I would hope. But
On with the language of up to $500.
I mean, I'm trying to think for Josh, like if the mayor has to go and knock on someone's door and they're not nice about it. You know what I mean? Like it might be, well, it's gonna be a $500 fine if you don't, you see what I'm saying? Like, just to give the person.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe that's what part B is, any person found to be in violation of this ordinance. I mean, if you're just going up and saying we have an ordinance and they turn it off, then they're not violating the ordinance anymore. But if they refuse to turn it off, then you can just say,
Depending on
you're
how
violating
egregious.
the
Up
ordinance.
to a 500.
Yeah, just up to 5, and if it's something pretty benign, it could, with that language, we could go less.
Could do maybe. Find, maybe, not maybe, may be
Maybe.
fined. I'm remembering one other comment from the public hearing was regarding commercial vehicles versus all vehicles. Is that something you wanted to address as well?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I remember that. And I think that is a good discussion point. In my opinion, I don't draw a big distinction between commercial and non-commercial. Like if it's you got some big diesel bus and it's not commercial, but it's sitting at the library, smoking up the library for, the customers of the library. I don't say that's any different than, you shouldn't be idling there either.
I mean, there are tourists that drive by in these things that are larger than most commercial vehicles, I mean, there's like giant bug out things, so.
Well, but it's not just giants either. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
saying all vehicles, it could,
Yeah,
it
motorcycles.
could be the person sitting at the bank with their car building or, you know, I mean.
Which I feel like with the time limit of 10 minutes for any non-commercial vehicle that's a lot, that's plenty of time if you're leaving your vehicle on for whatever reason to go inside a business. That's anything in Bluff, I would think. I mean, for the most part, should be.
That's probably certainly warm enough.
And everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you're right, it's not about size. I mean, because, you know, 10 Harleys make up more noise than, so. You know,
and that gives people plenty of time to like warm up a vehicle in the winter too. I mean, I feel like 10 minutes is.
Takes 15 minutes to warm up a school bus.
ooh, there we go.
So,
But we're not having, but we won't be having too many school buses warming up in Bluff, will we?
yeah, the one down behind Bluff
Oh.
Elementary that runs the kids route down here,
Okay.
it gets warmed up every morning.
Okay.
Before the driver heads out.
That would be the only thing I would think of would be like cold, really cold days of warming something up where you'd wanna maybe extend it. Cause I mean, even my diesel truck, winter, I've got up for at least.
And that's.
I would,
Josh's discretion.
sorry to interrupt, I apologize. I would say the school buses probably fall under vehicles required to idle for maintenance or safety
Oh,
procedures.
an inspection, because that's what you're doing when it's.
Yeah,
When it's
so I
idle.
think you're gonna get away from that with that.
And there'll be a lot of discretion to the person,
Good job, yeah.
there'll be a lot of discretion to the person forcing it on what the scenario is.
Well, but I wanna get away from the discretion of enforcement.
Oh, I
If we're
mean,
gonna-
like there'll be, if you walk up and it's a school bus
Yeah.
idling, getting ready, like, and it's not to the exact letter of the law, like I'm saying that there's a
Yeah.
little bit of. I think we still get with.
We can just still remind them too at that point in time that, but we've gotta be careful when we're passing ordinances that we intend to pass them for everybody, not just,
Equally.
yes.
First.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I also don't mind if we want to make it 15 minutes. You know what I mean? No one's gonna be sitting around with a stopwatch on this stuff. It's like we want to have the ability when you know the guy's been there for a while and been like, dude, let's go. So like if we're worried about a school bus and it taking 15 minutes to warm up, I'd be totally fine making 15 minutes instead of 10 minutes. I can never see a scenario where we're like sitting there waiting to give someone a ticket at, 15 minutes and 1 second,
I guess that's what I meant by discretion, like that kind of thing, yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with 15, I'm fine with, do we wanna keep it at 500 or do we wanna drop it?
I think since we say up to 500, I think that that's perfectly fine, because if they're really obnoxious about it or something, and you're just like, look, I'm tired of dealing with you. There you go. We've had a nice conversation about this and.
Cool. Anything else anybody like to talk about on this, or Josh, anything else you'd like to cover before we move on?
That feels good as long as everybody's generally in agreement on that, and we can bring it back forward for a vote when we get things lined up.
Did we decide to turn it to 15 instead of 10?
Yeah, 15.
Aaron's
that,
diligently working on
Make that,
editing.
Live editing is maybe. Right. Awesome,
Let me
cool.
Save a copy of that. Oh, it's already gonna be saved as that, so I'm getting it back.
Perfect, all right, awesome. So sweet, now we'll move into new business with number 3, capital improvements projects fund designation.
You wanna start this one, Josh, and
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, I'll just explain what we're talking about. Again, not for a vote tonight, but to make sure we're generally heading in a direction that the council is in agreement on. So in the past, my understanding is, we have a capital improvements funds that have been allocated by the council to go toward capital improvements. And I'm just going to use a random number, but let's just say there's $100,000 that have been earmarked by the council for capital improvements in the past. That amount is not designated to any specific capital improvement. So, if, for example, we were applying for a grant, it would not be accurate to say that the council has put aside X dollars for this project just because it's on the capital improvement list, because there's other things on the capital improvements list. So let's say, for example, we're saving up for the airport project. Unless we actually designate that these funds are being saved for that project, they're really just going into kind of a general capital improvements fund. And so both Aaron and I really think that it would be helpful as we are saving up for things and as we're applying for grants and so forth, that we actually designate how much of capital improvement funds have been earmarked for any specific project. There's nothing stopping us from changing those in the future and saying, hey, it's now the policy of the council that that's not as much of a priority and we're moving that over. But then we can actually have a good sense of like how much money we have set aside and are saving for specific capital improvements. And so that's the discussion we wanted to have, is see if people are comfortable with starting that approach. A future discussion would be, okay, we have X amount in capital improvements. How do we want to designate that now? Or do we just want to designate new money that goes into capital improvements? Like that's a future discussion. But the discussion we wanted to have tonight to start that was just like, are folks comfortable from moving from essentially an undesignated capital improvements fund to a designated one? Do you think I've captured that well, Aaron, or what would you add?
Yes, I think that's a good way to describe it.
I think that makes sense because in specific, when we went for the playground, we had the playground as one of the capital improvement projects but when it came time for us to write the grant to see how much we had for a matching fund. That, so I think it's a good idea to designate to specific projects.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too. It shows transparency, plan, I'm fine with all of it.
Cause how are we currently doing it? Like designating it directly to capital?
So pretty much what it has been is, in our accounting system, there's just like a capital projects fund. And there's money like over a year. What I'm unfamiliar with is whether the council had like put a specific amount in there. I think there might be a resolution that did that. But essentially we've gotten to the point where, because we are more closely tracking the fund balance allocation year to year, so we know like the money that's moving through the general fund year over year. Now we're able to say, okay, we have these cash funds that are sitting in PTIF that aren't earmarked up here. Of these that are continuing to build interest, of these, where should each, like what percentage or what ratio or what dollar amount should go to what project? I think it also speaks to, you guys have been doing great work in prioritizing your goals, and this would kind of add more substance to saying we are prioritizing this is the amount that we have in each of these. And then it also helps staff, it helps from a budgeting perspective of, okay, there's a gap in our funding, here's what we need to go do to make up for it.
Well, you got me at help staff and budget concern, budget work, so.
Appreciate that. I mean, the only benefit to using just kind of like a fund is you could just like lean over and say, oh, we've got a project that came up, we've got money for it. But if my ideal would be to have a sustainable, hey, this is where it is. No, I did double check with the accountant. That's not to say if you've had an emergency come up, you can't reallocate off of what's done. You just would want to in the future, say, oh, we are going to take from X project, and X project. So, or, across the board, we're going to reduce all by however much. And again, that still helps staff understand, here's how far we are from a current objective.
Especially with all these big ticket multi-year things.
Well, and that's, I mean, that's
Yeah, and this is a step up in growth of the town. I mean, the budgets they had been operating under previously, didn't have these big capital expenditures. They didn't have these big matching grant kind of things. So this is what I see as kind of just like the next evolution, the next step up in governance.
Makes sense to me.
And I guess
Good.
one other positive, I think, is that if we say in a grant application have made a commitment, then it's, those funds are more strongly earmarked, and we would need to actively make a discussion and have a discussion as a board to change that. Again, not that we couldn't change it, but it would be a policy decision that we're actively making to change an allocation. And I think it's just more transparent, and also, make sure that we meet the commitments that we do make.
And since we're constantly transitioning through people, it helps with that too.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really good point. Really good point.
Right, yeah. So like the next council goes, well, the last council was really saving up for that airport thing, and then if they decide not to do it, that's their prerogative, but they would, need to decide that and, tell the public why they're saying, hey, this isn't a priority for us.
Yeah. I like it, for sure. Awesome, Josh. Is there anything else you want to add on that one before we move on?
No, maybe Aaron, you can transition to the next one, explain a little bit more what we're thinking about next steps in terms of the actual the list. And this would be the list that then we would in a future meeting decide how we want to, if we want to allocate any of the current funds that we have saved up to these projects. And then also just if there are projects that aren't on this list that we feel like we want on the list. But
And-
I'll
and
turn
this
it
is-
to Aaron.
And this is number 4, capital improvements, project list update and progress.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to move. Oh yeah, there, that's a little bit better. Not great. We're getting there. Okay, couple bit. Okay, all right, so when they created the capital improvements plan, and you'll hear capital improvements projects, capital improvements plan, it's the same general idea, so if I get my acronyms here and there, just bear with me. The CIP. When the CIP was created, there does have to be a list associated with it, so previous councils had to start from somewhere. The last one that was formally approved and adopted was adopted in September of 2024. What you'll see is these items definitely align with what is in the strategic planning document. We went through a little bit of a process to figure out like the priorities, and there were some metrics as to how they determined like critical, high, medium, low. Some of that had to do with like safety. So of course, like roads projects, a little higher. We've got some like emergency services stuff, a little higher. And then of course the CCC renovation. Lower stuff could be items that were a little less costly, or the impact wouldn't be as significant as some of the higher projects. So I will see if I still have like how those priorities, like what's the definition for each of those levels. But I think the important part today is that as of 2024, and this is like not accounting for inflation, total projects cost was about $6.6 million. Of which the town said that they would like to fund like 1.4 million. So at that time, they didn't, the cash did not equate to 1.4. It was probably somewhere closer to around $500,000 or so. So again, this is a really nice way for us to kind of move into the future and say, okay, we know the estimated project cost. We would like to contribute up to this amount. We currently have this amount for this project. So you can see we can add a few more columns. In the budgeting process for fiscal year 2026, this year, oh, it looks like it didn't move over. CIP draft. Okay, here we go. Under amendment, I'm all thrown off. So in May of last year, in preparation for this fiscal year, council had talked about updating this list, but I don't have a record of it actually ever being like formally approved. And I might just be missing something. I know we had really talked about it, but I don't know, I don't think it ever got like formally approved with any particular budget.
I don't know if we formally did either. I mean, I know we spent tons of time on it, but maybe that was one of the things that we spent tons of time on it in the work session and it never got moved to the agenda of a meeting to vote on. I don't know.
I think if I am recalling, we got very tied up in
Mhm.
litigation at this
Mhm.
point in time. And I think we did the like required, but I mean, we first did the required budget stuff, but this never made it to a final draft. Now, I will say like having money that, you know, is for the playground, great, no problem at all. Whether it's coming from capital projects or it's just coming from the annual budget, doesn't matter. You guys have money towards it, not a problem. But again, is gonna really help us to have those amounts earmarked. So couple changes on this one. I don't think there was anything like major updated. It looks very similar. But maybe it looks like the priority list changed in a couple different ways.
Yeah, I think we changed some priorities. more.
Yeah, so
And even still, I mean, we need to update that again anyways, because I mean, cemeteries done.
pretty much covered. Yeah, I would
And-
say that there's not much there. You can kind of pay for maintenance and the little
Right.
stuff out of your
Right.
general fund. And then, you know, the grant covered. You know, you had talked about potentially earmarking $20,000 for like green space, but that wasn't, as far as I know, I don't know if there was anything. You know, we said it was a priority, but there was like no specific project. So that could be something too, is like in order for it to get on the capital projects list. Because you can see that the need is still significant. You know, you at least need to have like a description of the project, a time frame in mind, or some, you know, something like that. So definitely some opportunities here. But we wanted to get this in front of you as we're talking budget for this coming year, because I think you'll have the opportunity to go after some of these, as well as incorporate your 2026 calendar year goals and make sure they are funded in a way that you can get them accomplished, or at least start on getting them accomplished by the end of the calendar year, fiscal year, however you want to look at it.
So my suggestion would be, and this is why we wanted to introduce this topic, is that people spend some time looking at this list, thinking about what might be missing, or if maybe, you know, there are things that are not as much of a priority for y'all, that in our 2027 planning process, that we actually update this, and per the previous item, add a column and say, this is how much of the funds we have right now that we've earmarked for this particular project. And obviously we don't have to earmark for, you know, some projects, but we might want to for, you know, other projects or higher priority projects.
I just took it out of your regular general budget. I didn't pull this one out of capital projects. It's the painting project. That one's done.
Oh, that was painting, not playground.
No, not playground. I was gonna put playground as pending.
Well, and I think the playground is not, I mean, I think this portion of the playground is done, but we still have other playground needs.
Perfect. Yep, excellent. Okay. Great. So what I'll do is I'll leave this document, or this copy of the document, I have the original. I'll leave this copy of the document in your agenda packet for today. And you're welcome to go in and make comments or make marks. Of course, like, don't delete out anything. But if you're not don't touch it. If you're not a regular Excel user, it'll look very similar to how you like edit a Word document by like right clicking and like adding a comment. So you don't have to get in there and like make changes to the cells if you don't want to. But yeah, so I'd say maybe put that in there, and then maybe and if you see anything really major for the budget, when we were having those budget discussions in April, definitely, put those at the top of the list.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Anything else to add, Josh, before we move on?
No, thanks, Britt.
All right. All right, sweet. We'll move to number 5, discuss proposed changes to master fee schedule and schedule public hearing for Tuesday, April 7th, 2026.
I think this one falls to me as well. So, as we kind of alluded to in previous meetings, the master fee schedule just needs a couple little tweaks. Because it's dealing with financials, it does need to go to public hearing. So we said, yep, if it's okay with you guys, we'll just go ahead and tack that on to the April 7th public hearing. I'd recommend probably doing it immediately after the proposed amended budget hearing. A couple areas that I had highlighted, and definitely like the discussion can go further than this, but a couple of the areas that I had highlighted that I'd like you all to evaluate. This one's very simple, but this would have been like fiscal year as opposed to calendar year. So to make it more clear for users, I will just make a change to this because this is fiscal year, which does not help people because they're like, it's 2026. Why did I get charged this amount? So that's a very simple one up in Bluff Airport. I have not received any feedback, and again, that's why we have the public hearing. I haven't received any feedback from the building department nor the public or anything else regarding like building permits. However, with the building department, we really don't need that land use clearance application. Most other applications are either covered by a building permit or one of the like subdivision things down below. I would recommend, and this is probably some research that I can do, but I'm just highlighting it. In the work that staff has conducted for some of the minor things that we were seeing, and like the alley vacation and the boundary line adjustment that was just completed, I don't believe that these reflect a realistic cost. Some of that has to do with our legal fees going up quite a lot. Our legal fees are currently at $380 an hour. So these are not covering those. And then just staff time, it's great that we have staff, but also these are not just quick things. So I'd recommend just maybe making some slight adjustments. Again, our fee schedule is not intended to provide revenue for the town. It is to cover costs. And so I want to make that very clear for anyone listening. And then same with like potentially this map. I didn't highlight this one, but like a true map amendment where we are having to get into like the actual maps and make amendments. We don't really have those skills in-house. This is going to be a lot more than $500. So just a few of these I'd like to look at and maybe propose some changes. And then one I have never used, and I don't know if there was an ordinance that originally went with this or a resolution, or if they just folks are taking this from other towns. I have never once charged a special event permit. I don't know what they are. So either they remove those, or if someone knows what they are and they're listening right now and can tell me what these are, that would be awesome, but we don't charge these. So I don't know what they are. Cemetery fees. Oh, sorry.
Aaron.
Well, I wonder if those weren't in relation to like when we used to have the fair and we might have the fair again. That kind of thing requires sometimes some extra law enforcement presence, extra EMT presence.
Just extra coordinating in general.
Clean up at the end, I mean, there's. Well, we haven't had one for several years, but there used to be some events that we had that had a specific higher impact than those that we do now. So I wonder if they weren't put into place in regards to those. And if we were talking about, which Josh has mentioned in the past, wanting to reestablish the Utah Navajo Fair and Bluff or things like that, maybe it's not a bad idea to leave them intact.
Well, what I was going to say is sorry, I was looking carefully at my screen, and so I went off camera for a minute, so you wouldn't look up my nose. Many many towns and cities have special events ordinances, and where, certain types of events require a permit. A parade on a town street where town streets are going to get closed, things like that. At least to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything in our ordinances where we have a special event ordinance. And so it's kind of like, it'd be like, under what, kind of authority are we charging a special event? I don't think that there's any harm in having it on there, but it also feels like we don't really have a structure for it at the moment. In order to decide, who is charged a special event and who isn't charged a special event. Like the Navajo Fair, it'd be like, well, if we're working on it and we're maybe hosting it on our property or something like that, we would work out a deal with people. But yeah, I don't have a problem keeping it, but it feels like realistically, we would probably need an ordinance setting that out, what special events are, before it really made sense.
And I don't know, like, if Malia's ever gotten the question, I guess people are doing the rentals, if they ever ask if they need like a special event fee or anything, that's never come up, so, okay. Yeah.
Everybody's gonna voluntarily ask, oh, do I need to pay the extra $100?
Yep, I paid more. Okay, so that's just my only comment on that. From the cemetery board, so they are still meeting, and so one of the reasons that's, that we would want to adjust this resolution, this master fee schedule, is for the cemetery. The board they recommend keeping the cemetery plot purchases to $100, so that reserves the right to bury. We are not selling land. And there's all kinds of good stuff with that. So we're not selling the land, we're selling the right to bury for a particular plot. They're recommending to keep it at $100. And then because grave opening and closing, like the actual expense of doing it, we don't have someone in Bluff or someone in the town government who's able to do that. We'll need to put together like a list of vendors who could do that. And so the recommendation is just to say that the fee is at cost of whatever that vendor needs to charge, but we're hoping to be able to, get contracts or get agreements with folks, so we at least have something to provide the individuals when that comes, so it's not like a surprise as to what the cost is. And but currently we don't have any kind of that list. But the recommendation would just say, it's at cost, which we do see in a couple other places too. So,
okay.
Questions or comments?
What are your, you mentioned up in rating some of the fees. What are your recommendations on some of that for staff time?
Yeah, I would say like this one here, like the alley vacation and boundary line, any kind of plot modifications where like it's very detailed, like what we saw today, like very detailed for meets and bounds. We're doing work with the lawyers, we're doing full drafting to fit each individual thing. I would recommend probably increasing that to probably $350 to $500. I think knowing that 1 hour of legal review is at least $380. I think 500 is pretty reasonable. Again, like these fees are not meant to dissuade people from, approaching us and doing stuff, but again, and it's also kind of your take on it too. I do expect there to be some administrative time for things like this, like that just makes sense. But where, we have to go back to the lawyer. I mean, I would say Chris probably spent at least 2.5 to 3 hours on the one that we just looked at today. That's a pretty significant impact.
That would probably be most of the time for that.
I would say
A couple
because
hours?
each of these are so unique and we are working with some really strange previous circumstances. I would say at least 2 hours of legal time and probably 3 to 5 hours of my time for most of these.
Yeah.
I'd say that price needs to go up then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with 500 at least. I mean, on it.
Yeah,
And I think you can do incremental and, this just isn't something that I've been like really tracking. Cause like there isn't a mechanism in our system right now where I just like tie my time to stuff like Chris does. But I think like an incremental increase to 500 and we can continue to evaluate if that's like way off basis would great. And then we have not done a major subdivision, but knowing the detail at which the subdivision ordinance is right now, this is nowhere near close. So I would say this is going to be, and again, we're having a public hearing, we want public input, but I would think a major subdivision application is probably gonna be closer to like $1,500. And I would also, like I said, I should do some research and looking at other municipalities. But I would say major is definitely over $1,000. Minor would probably be kind of in line with this one, so somewhere between $500 and $600 minimum.
Yeah, because I guess that was gonna be my next question is if we see it go up from that 200 to 500, the plat modifications, like what else
Mhm.
needs to come up if you know that took so long?
Yeah. Some additional comments in here. So we're gonna do this one.
What did we base these off of to begin with?
That's a good question.
I mean, I know when we were looking at our building license fees and stuff like that, we were basing the rates off of what the county was currently charging for those services.
Yeah, which has worked out really well. If I'm gonna say this and it's gonna be on the record, I'm gonna feel bad about it. My guess is that we might have been looking for like some comparable towns to see what they were charging.
Well, and that was probably also done 8 to 10 years ago.
So if we did a total reworking of the plat map and boundary lines and kind of short all that, like kind of made that a little bit more accurate, a lot of this stuff might not take as much time or cost as much money.
That's a good perspective, Spencer. Yes, so if there were fewer, I'm gonna call them if there were fewer issues with like a lot of the auxiliary stuff, yes. But I will say there is just still like a lot of legal stuff that we go through, like no matter what it is, even if everything is perfect, there are just a lot of checks that we put in place. And most of the time, it's best practice to run it by legal counsel. The hope would be, though, is it only takes him like 15 minutes to review it because we have seen a couple of them. And there's also a little bit of we're a small town, so we're kind of like building everything from scratch every time. Ideally in the future, we'll have some like economies of scale where we've already done 27 map adjustments. Just kidding.
Well, and if you take 15 minutes with legal, does it just round up to an hour?
He charges every 5 minutes.
Okay.
So make sure you're under the 10.
Make sure you're under 5 minutes. Write it down very skilled and tell Chris not to small talk with you.
Don't ask me how I am. Really be mindful if that next question is actually worth it. All right, cool.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, so I would say, so we're getting rid of this one. I'll just throw in here $600 for a minor, $1,500 for a major, $500 for any of these kind of adjustments. Variance applications, we haven't gotten many yet. I think when we do get them, it depends on what we're looking at. Zoning, like true text amendments are less burdensome, but for a lot of these, we're also thinking about like the notice that has to be published. We're doing public hearings. We might have to, whatever it is. So I think if we can at least say that like if the map is getting amended, we know that that's a lot of like technical work on the back end. That should at least cover that. Anything else up there? And building department seems to be working out pretty well, I think, from a cost perspective. They've been doing.
I have a question out to Chris right now, but I'm curious if the town of Bluff building fees waiver needs to be included in this.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
So, because Town of Bluff owns a building department, like when we
Oh.
start doing work with the CCC, do we need to include in our master fee schedule that we don't have to pay the building fees, building permit fees?
We will probably, like, if we have to have that notated somewhere, it would just be like a resolution. But a good question, yeah. My thought is that we probably don't pay ourselves, but yeah, probably be a resolution if needed. And then Malia had gone over her recommendations. Malia, could you just state, so it's on this record,
Yes.
cause you, like, we're way simplifying it,
It's way
but yeah,
simplifying.
where are we at?
My proposal is to remove the half and full day rentals completely, for all. The Bluff Community Center would be $100. The Fire Mason Kitchen would be $75. The pavilion would be 50.
And that,
And
for
that
any
includes-
day,
Yeah, that includes your rental, your cleaning fee. I haven't thought about the linen rental at this point, the audio visual, I say we just include as well. The linens are kind of meticulous.
I think the linens make sense to include, because like you are physically doing the work
Right.
to get that done. I'm sorry, pavilion, you said 50, okay, cool. And then you're getting rid of any of the cleaning fees, it's all included.
Yeah.
Linen rental, I think maybe linen rental would just keep the same. And then we haven't been doing deposits, and then I would keep the lost or damaged equipment fees is just the at cost to replace. And then you're recommending keeping all of this the same, correct, at this time? Okay, great. So we'll do. put
So
strike throughs on.
question. My only concern about getting rid of the half day is then why wouldn't you just always just rent it for a day? Like there's just like zero incentive to make space for another person. You're like, well, why not just, I'll just, to be safe, I'm just going to keep it for the full day kind of deal. What do you, I mean, it's not about a money thing. It's more about like allowing the building to be used by other people if it's not actually needed by somebody.
So for clarification, you're wondering why I'm eliminating the half day?
Yeah.
Well, typically there has been one or two times that I have done 2 half-day rentals, and it has been so much work between myself and making sure that our housekeeping can get in at a certain time to turn over the space between the two, that I am rarely doing more than 1 rental in one day anyway.
That makes sense.
I think that also justifies like a slightly lower cost here is that there is less coordination between Malia and janitorial and everything. It's like, yep, you get it for the day. And then Malia's not trying to kick people out unless it's past 10 p.m.
Scrambling
Yeah,
to get it.
yeah, because we definitely have seen that too, where like, oh, it's going a little long, or they get here 2 hours early and they're like, where are my keys? And that's really stressful, so.
And we would still include in this fee schedule kind of some what we talked about last time with like a waiver for bluff-based nonprofits, like that sort of deal.
It's a good.
Yes.
I
I haven't come up with those numbers yet, I haven't had any time this week, but it's on my list. I will have it ready by April 7th. When do I actually have to have that ready? When does it need to be posted? Next.
If you can have it by Monday, that would be
I'll have it
good.
ready by March 3rd.
So we'll have that up on the website with the notice. And typically for these, like, you'll see strike throughs on here and then like in red of any changes. And so the public can see what we're seeing here. Okay.
My other comment was this code violation and penalty piece. Like, my understanding is like those are not fees. I don't, those are fines and penalties for violation of ordinances. And so they would, in my view, those need to be in the ordinance to be enforceable. And so it feels extraneous and also potentially just problematic for them to be here when they should be in the ordinances. And if they're not in the ordinances, we probably need to go back and amend those ordinances. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, Aaron.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it does run the risk of like, it's in some of the ordinances, it's not in some of the ordinances. Yeah, I know like some of these definitely were modified when we did the master fee schedule adjustment last time. So who knows if they were ever adjusted in the ordinance, so probably a good ordinance cleanup is needed. I think the only benefit to having them here could be that like it's easier for the public to see. But ultimately, I think when it comes down to enforcement, like that's a process where we need to be communicating really clearly with someone who, you know, when there's an infraction, it's less about, oh, go look at our schedule and more about like the communication to get them into compliance. So I think just having it in the ordinance makes a lot of sense, but we definitely probably need some ordinance cleanup. Malia's back there hanging 10 because yes, we always have cleanup. Right? I think
So I guess I don't have a problem with them being here unless they are like contradictory to the ordinance, and in that case, that would be bad. So, you know, like we wouldn't want something here that is not reflected in an ordinance. And you know, if it's here, I guess if it's let's say it says $200 for a burning, you know, thing in the ordinance, but here it says 500, that would be a problem. You know, if I guess if there is no ordinance that sets a penalty for burning and we have 500 here, you know, whether or not we can enforce it is maybe the big question. I don't really mind having it here, but we should probably just double check before we pass this that there's not some contradiction in the amounts between the two.
my guess and probably gut recommendation is going to be, we're probably going to want to remove it, put it in the ordinance, because the ordinance is law. The master fee schedule is a resolution, which is still a law, but it's a little bit more, I don't know how to describe that. It's just a little bit more
Soft one.
soft. Yeah, yeah, it's good. Yeah. So I think it'd be good to put them in the ordinances. And then for any of the ordinances that are charging fees, what we've done is say, see master fee schedule for the costs, because these costs do change. And that way, we're not, I think it also is important maybe to just include it in the ordinance, because it shows if you're going to make a change to those penalty limits, like it's going to go through a pretty robust review process in the ordinance. It's not just, oh, this council feels like adjusting this fee or this violation because, you know, just for fun, you know, that's, and I would also say too, like code violations aren't necessarily, they aren't necessarily revenue generating, but it's definitely a very different structure as to how you put them in place versus everything you have on your master fee schedule. This is very much cost driven as opposed to a penalty, which is more of a deterrent.
Can you go down to the Fire Mesa membership? I would like to see a, how am I gonna work this? How am I gonna work this? A cleaning penalty assessed. If our community or if our manager has to go in and clean on a regular basis, which I think has been a little bit of an issue. That every time she has to go in and clean, there's a X amount of fee that's imposed. I don't know how to word that, but
I think it's called an additional cleaning fee.
okay.
Yeah, cause that's just some extra time that
It's definitely extra time.
shouldn't
Yeah.
need to be spent.
Yeah,
Would that include as well as the janitorial staff going in and going in?
I think it's just additional cleaning fee.
Okay, cause I have at this point asked them to just go in once a week.
well,
Really?
and is that because it's needed because it's not happening? So maybe therefore, if this starts getting assessed, that cleaning will start happening a little bit regularly is what I'm hoping.
Oh. Yeah. Didn't know that was an issue.
Yeah.
be there.
And I'll say that with just the general with all of the fire measure kitchen things, if we're addressing it at all, there's an issue. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking about,
That was
over
the
that
whole
at this
idea.
point, it's.
Well, and I mean, when we implemented this, we implemented it on a trial basis, and these are the problems that we're finding, so these are our modifications for our trial.
$40 an hour. Or 358 an hour. 5-minute interval.
Not trying to make money. So, I think $40 an hour is incredibly reasonable for the coordination that it takes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the timing and, yeah.
Sorry, I was questioning.
Oh, no, I know.
I guess.
No,
I was questioning. Like, it's like.
And I would hope that it would be a deterrent is what I'm hoping. I mean,
You'd think it would be after
Yeah.
one whack.
Would be for me.
Especially if you're only paying,
Yeah. Yeah.
$250 a month, like, that's a pretty significant increase, so. And then it's always modifiable, so. Cool, Jen, I think well said,
Yeah,
thank you.
great. I had no idea.
Malia, let us help you.
And let us help you.
That was cute, okay. Anything else on the masterpiece? All right, so Malia and I will get this worked up and it'll go with the notice and we'll get a final copy too, since we did some markups. I'll take off the resolution, but you guys will see something similar when you finally go to approve it, just saying, hey, we've done this before, here's the new one.
All right, any more conversation on that? Awesome. We will move to number 6, discussion and vote to submit letter of support for Bears Ears Partnership's Utah Division of Outdoor Recreation grant proposal.
All right, this one, we received a request. This is kind of a retroactive approval, just a heads up, I do already have a signature from the mayor. However, Bears Ears Partnership is looking to do some work on trails in the Bears Ears region. They'll be using their Canyon Country Discovery crew to do that work. And I did not want to put employees of Bears Ears Partnership on the spot to sign that document, so I did secure Josh's signature, but I haven't turned it in yet, so if you guys had any concerns, let me know.
Rip it out.
And this is a continuation off of last year. We gave a similar letter of support, and Bears Ears Partnership basically got half of what they asked for, and they were told to come back next year because they keep getting it anyways. So this is just a continuation of something we already approved, like in a way. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I think it's clearly in the town's best interest for the public lands around us to be well taken care of, and the trails that tourists are visiting the town are visiting are taken care of. It's a way to bring support for folks that are working in our town. So seems, right up the alley of the type of thing we want to support.
Because we do have it for a vote on there.
We do have it for a vote, but I'm going to abstain from this one just because it's Bears Ears.
So I'll also abstain from this one.
Because, it feels like to me, actually, this is one of those things like I signed it, I'm the mayor, unless you guys have some problem with it, I don't feel like this needs some formal vote.
I actually had questions about that in general, just if letters of support need to come all the way through a vote, because a lot of times, some of them are, but I don't know, just had questions about that in general.
Yeah, my thought would be like, this is essentially an administrative action, and that the mayor can take, as the CEO of the town, and that it'd mostly just be like, if there's a question that this is like, in line with the policy of the council. The main thing, obviously, you all would have to vote on it if we are dedicating town resources, like we're gonna match this thing, we're gonna do that. But in most of these cases, it feels like, it would only be if the mayor really had a question. That's my thought. If you guys feel like you want to review and approve every time we sign one of these, let me know, I guess, would be what I would thought.
I think it's nice to review them just so we know what's going on. I don't, I guess that way if we had a disagreement with it or something, we could bring it up at that point in time. So I would still like to review them at least.
I'm comfortable with putting them on. I was just asking when it was like, because one of the issues that often comes up with these letters of support is
You
we've
need
seen a
it
bunch,
fast.
it's like, oh crap, we need
Yeah.
it right now. And then we end up with these situations where it happens, this has happened a lot, where
Yeah.
when we come to the meeting and Anne's like, I signed it already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the main reason I was asking, was just a little bit of clarification, but.
Which is a good
Well,
thing to put out.
maybe what I'll propose is just, to streamline these is that the council always gets a heads up, and has, an opportunity to flag a concern sort of deal versus creating the situation where we're, they have to come before the council for a vote and be agended and take time and that sort of thing. Does that feel comfortable for folks that we give the heads up, hey, I'm intending to do this. Let me know before this time if you have any concerns or something like that?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think that works. If we all get a chance to review it.
So one's asking for letters sometimes, so it's weird.
Well, and because I do know that, I mean, sometimes you can come up with a grant opportunity that's literally due in 24 hours.
Totally.
We've seen it multiple times, so I think it's nice to have that leeway, but I would like, like I said, I would like council notifications.
Yeah.
What we're supporting.
Yeah, maybe like so, a heads up on what's going on, and then maybe like not for a vote, but just to mention it in public. Like we
Yeah.
did put a letter of support out for this organization for this thing. That'd be, okay, cool.
I think that works well. And then I think, especially where we do have, and it's not even like a conflict of interest, but like a disclosure, like I work on this board or I work for this organization. Those specifically, it's nice to have those come before and just kind of have that flag. So that leads well into the second one, also for Bears Ears Partnership. They are applying for a grant to help with some extension and beautification of Bears Ears Education Center. So that drafted letter was also in your agenda packet. I will note, I wasn't thinking about this as I was drafting the letter, but as long as they're coming to the Bluff Building Department, if they need a building department or a building permit, I'm happy with it. But did anyone have any questions or concerns about that letter of support?
Yeah.
Great. And I will say, Mayor Ewing did sign one as mayor. They asked for two. They wanted one from the town council. So this one pertains to you all specifically, and then one from Josh. So just a heads up.
Okay. Okay. So that's either Carrie or I get to sign it.
I'm actually gonna have, if you're okay with it, I'll have both of you sign it. I have Bluff Town Council members, so I can grab both signatures from. Okay, thank you. Cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's see. All right, we'll move to number 8, other. Are there any others? Anybody have anything else?
We sent out a reminder email to folks, anyone on our mailing list. If you want to be on our mailing list, let us know. But complete the survey by Friday. We have about 50 participants so far, which is amazing. But would love to get a few more in there. So fill out the well-being survey by Friday at 5. The burn mitigation weekend is next weekend on Friday and Saturday from 8 to noon. Bring in all of your yard trimmings, clean yard trimmings only, please. Brush, branches, clean leaves, to the Cooperative Cultural Center. If you need a yard pickup, let us know. And more importantly, if you'd like to volunteer, let us know. Malia still has spots open. So many spots open.
How many people do you need?
So.
No, I'd like to have at least 2 volunteers at the CCC for each 2-hour shift. So I currently have 1 volunteer. I'm trying not to time for the volunteer.
Amazing. Okay, yeah. So if folks want to volunteer, they can reach out to Malia at townofbluffutah.gov. Cool. Those are my 2.
No plastic or styrofoam.
Definitely
Okay.
no dog poop. No dog poop.
Yeah, let's all be nice. Any others? All right, well, it is 5:29. I don't have to motion to adjourn anymore, do I? So we'll just adjourn, 5:29.
Ready? I'm turning off.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.